hustle and tussle like Buffalo Bill. One day she decided she'd go for a ride with a pistol and a sword by her side.
It's Marshall Chess here again on the Chess Records Tribute Channel, bringing you another great story. A story that I've been wanting to tell since we got the idea of making a channel. So, you know, my father was Leonard Chess, but my uncle, Phil Chess, was his total symbiotic partner, equally as important to the success of Chess Records and all of the great chess artists as my father. My father was the older brother, 5 years older than my Uncle Phil, and he was the main character. The thing about it is, like brothers often have, they were totally opposite. And they figured this out at a very young age and figured out how to way to use this dual personality to the benefit of Chess Records and our lives. So my father had certain artists that was Leonard's artists, certain disc jockeys that were Leonard's disc jockeys, other disc jockeys that Phil's personality worked well with. They constantly switched back and forth. And the reason I know this is when I entered into Chess Records, I was a chess, and I was brought into that same, the duet became a trio. Now Marshall would go to the studio. What disc jockeys does Marshall want to go smoke pot with? Because we're not going to be doing it. Marshall, you get those hookers for that guy from South Carolina coming in. So I became a part of the chess trio. But in thinking about it, I realized how symbiotic, how fabulous their relationship was. So first I started thinking about what great records did my uncle produce and what great records did my father produce. And then I realized after doing research that they both worked on all of the chess artists. Although I must say, my uncle had a much better relationship with the jazz artists and with the doo-wop artists than my father. My father really was great with the Howling Wolves, Muddy Waters, Sonny Boy Williamson, Little Walter. I think it had to do with the club, the Macombo Lounge that they ran in Chicago, and his early relationship with all of the clientele that was a rough and ready crowd. I don't know why, but they sure took advantage of their relationships. And I just wanted to say that without my uncle, there probably would have never been a Chess Records as great as it was.
There was a bus stop right in front. And in the summertime, we'd have our door open. We had the turntable, and we'd cut a session the night before, and we'd put the test record of the dub.
Playing over and over.
And you see these old women standing with a Muddy Waters record.
You're waiting for the bus.
So I said, what is that? Man, that sure sound good. Well, uh-oh, we got a record.
Another Chess Records tidbit is, as well as having recording artists they got along with, they each took certain sections of the country that they would promote. So my uncle had Cleveland, my uncle had Detroit, my father had Memphis, my father had Mobile, and they would both take their promotion trips and call DJs on the phone from those areas. It was crucial. I find it fascinating now that I'm old enough to understand psychology, that they use psychology. And, you know, whatever disc jockey worked best with my uncle's personality, that was the guy. And the ones that worked best with my father's, that was the guy. So yes, they did. They as well as artists, they utilized their symbiotic relationships with all the record promotion. That was so important. In that era, getting your record on the radio was crucial. There was no YouTube. There was no internet. You needed it on the radio, especially on the car radio, because everyone was pushing buttons riding around in their car. It was an explosion of music because of the car radio. This is something I vividly remember. Now, the one thing my uncle did do that I think is just amazing, he brought strings to the chess music. There's a great photo of him sitting at a piano with the great Chicago arranger Riley Hampton and Etta James. They were working on the string arrangement for At Last, a major Etta James hit on chess. And my uncle was really responsible for bringing in that string section, getting it done. I also remember him having a really great relationship with many of the late night jazz artists. He was also the guy that Ramsey Lewis liked to talk to the most. Well, when Ahmad Jamal came, he wanted to be with my father. That's how it worked. They each had their own artists, their own DJs. My uncle would throw a party in the summer. He'd have his DJ crowd there at his house for a barbecue. My dad would have his. I'd be the gopher for both of them. And so that was how I remember my childhood. And when I tried to differentiate the stuff they've both done, I realized that they were both together. It couldn't have happened without that mix. My uncle came to chess right out of the Army. You know, my dad had started a liquor store called Cut Rate Liquors, and it had like a jukebox. It was an old-time jukebox that played some kind of video pictures. And he soon saw on weekends when this 250,000 black people who came up from mostly Mississippi to Chicago came in to buy liquor, that they just loved the music and they loved the liquor. He moved into another place called the 708 liquor store, but it was a liquor store with a jukebox and a bar. And that's when he really saw the love of music, as they kept putting the nickel, 5 American pennies with what it cost to play a record. And they would drink, they would buy alcohol, they would drink there, they would play music, they would dance there. That inspired him, while my uncle was in the Army during World War II, to open the Macamba Lounge in Chicago. And he bought a property and made a bar. My uncle came out of the Army and immediately began to work there. And that's when it all began. And then, of course, the story is the Macamba burnt down. They used that money from the insurance to buy out the partners of Aristocrat Records, and in 1947 founded Chess Records. And the rest is all history. Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley. Oh, that's another story. It was my uncle who discovered Bo Diddley. Bo Diddley was a street corner band. Man, he would play with his guitar and Jerome Green and maracas on street corners to get coins. And he came into Chess Records, and my uncle said he would see him. And he played Bo Diddley on his acoustic guitar. Well, my uncle sat there, and my uncle said, "This is something new and different." And within days had recorded Bo Diddley in 1955. So you see, my uncle had this certain attraction, as well as my father. And hopefully I inherited a little bit of that, because I always got along great with all the chess artists, copying both of their styles, you know. And for me, I had the best. You know, I used to complain about my father. Oh, he never would play baseball with me. All he ever wanted to do was teach me how to shake hands, teach me business stuff, how to work in the shipping room. But my uncle was so opposite. He had a tropical fish tank in his office. He would sit around smoking these big cigars, wearing his hat. The Blues Brothers, those hats the Blues Brothers wear, that's copied from my Uncle Phil. He always had those hats on his head. And he'd be sitting there looking at this fish, talking to artists. My father never had time for those kind of conversations. So between the two of them, Chess Records was a great place. And our artists always had someone whose personality fit in. So that's my Phil Chess story for today. I know it's long and a little winded, But I've been waiting a long time to tell that because, whenever I tell stories, I always tell about my father. He was the A character. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The older brother, the A character, the captain. My uncle was the lieutenant. But man, Chess Records wouldn't have happened without both of them. And I know that down to my deepest soul. So that's my Phil Chess story for today. I hope you enjoyed those few cuts that I know Phil was involved in.
At last, my love has come along. My lonely days are over, and life is like a song. Oh yeah, yeah, at last the skies above are blue. My heart was wrapped up in clover. The night I looked at you, I found a dream that I could speak to, a dream that I can call my own. I found a thrill to press my cheek to, a thrill that I have never known. Oh yeah, you smile, you smile. Oh, and then the spell was cast, and here we are in heaven. For you are mine at last.
There's no better place on the internet than the Chess Historic channel on YouTube. Please subscribe so we can keep giving you more and more of this great stuff.
When she turned and walked away, all I could hear my baby say, saw my baby running across the field, slipping and sliding like an automobile. Hollered at my baby and I told her away, slipped off from me like a Cadillac.